still doesn't feel real. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. And boy, am I excited for today's show. Because if you haven't heard, I'll cut right to the chase. There's some big news coming out. This is the second week in a row that Ford, Roush Fenway, Ford teams in general have some huge news coming out. And this is arguably the biggest, or at least the most shocking news story of the 2018 NASCAR season so far. The news is Roush Fenway Racing is bringing back Matt Kenseth, that's right, Matt Kenseth, to its organization to drive the 6-car part-time in 2018 this season with Trevor Bayne. And not only that, but they are also introducing a new sponsor, Wyndham Rewards Hotels. They're introducing a brand new sponsor that seems like it's exclusive to Kenseth. So I'll jump into all that stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit about Talladega as well at the end of this episode. So let's go. I got to give you my opinions, got to give you my predictions going down the road, and I got to analyze what was talked about at the press conference here Wednesday morning. And let's just dive right in because I'm excited because it's my boy. So the story really began Wednesday night when Jordan Bianchi with SB Nation broke this news story at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, saying that Matt Kenseth was going to be driving the 6 for Roush Racing, effective immediately for the rest of the season. It talked about how he and Trevor Bayne are going to be splitting the ride up. Kenseth's going to be the majority of the races. Bayne will be a few more races. That whole deal. It didn't go into any more details, but it did say that likely this was going to be what was talked about Wednesday morning at Roush Racing's press conference. So let's fast forward 36 hours or so to the press conference Wednesday morning. Jack Roush was there, the president of Roush Fenway Racing, one of the people from Wyndham, the new sponsor, and then of course Matt Kenseth was there with Mark Martin. In fact, Mark Martin is actually the one who introduced Matt Kenseth, and it was one of those really nostalgic feelings for someone like me who started watching NASCAR in 2004-2005 when Roush Racing was a powerhouse with Mark Martin, Matt Kenseth, Biffle, Edwards, and Kurt Busch coming and going. You had a powerhouse team that was really headed by the 2003 champion Matt Kenseth and long-running veteran, many-time winner, second place finisher in points Mark Martin. So it was really nostalgic to see the two of them on stage, and Mark Martin introducing Matt Kenseth was really cool to see. But then they got to talking about the extent of the deal and some of the more details, and that's what I thought was most interesting because they really didn't have very many details to share with us. It seems like this was an agreement that really only started developing maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So it seems to be coming together relatively quickly, and the team president, Jack Roush, Matt Kenseth, Mark Martin, none of them really could say specifically how many races Matt Kenseth was going to run this season or whether or not he was going to be running only races in the Wyndham Rewards cars. Would he be running races in the Advocare cars? How many races would Trevor Bayne be running? How many races would Matt Kenseth be running? They really didn't have any of those answers for us. In fact, they kept saying that they're working on discussion, but I'll get into kind of the nuances of their conversation in a minute. What they were able to 100% confirm, though, is that Matt Kenseth, 46 years old, was with Roush Racing from late 90s up to 2012. He will be in the 6-car for some number of races this year, sponsored by Wyndham Rewards. And I'll put a picture of his car that they debuted. Nice little blue car, very pretty, I like it. He will be in that car for some number of races this season, starting May 12th at the Kansas Raceway. What is Kansas? It's Kansas Raceway. Anyway, he'll be at Kansas May 12th, and then they did confirm he will be running the All-Star race at Charlotte May 19th. So yeah, Matt Kenseth is qualified for the All-Star race. People were joking weeks ago, oh yeah, look, Matt's qualified. You think he could still race? He could still race. And I'm like, nah guys, he doesn't have a car. Like, who's going to pick him up? He's going to be the All-Star race with the Roush Fenway Racing. So we can expect him 2 weeks in a row in the mid-May. But like I said, as far as any other specifics, they were relatively tight-lipped. They said they were still in talks. They still didn't know for sure. But now the question is, why Matt Kenseth and why now? Like a quarter of the way through the season, mid-season, like why if Roush Fenway Racing wanted Matt Kenseth in this car at any point, why did they not make this deal in the off-season? Why did they wait till 7, 8, 9 weeks into the year to make this change? And that answer I actually don't know, and it didn't seem like they know. But they did give a lot of reasons, and it feels like the reasons for bringing Matt Kenseth on go beyond just what he can do on the racetrack itself. It sounds like a lot of what they want Matt Kenseth to do going forward is they want him to be a part of Roush Fenway Racing, developing their new young drivers. They have some pretty strong young drivers in their system. I mean, obviously Ricky Stenhouse, Trevor Bayne have had some success. Stenhouse is looking like he's getting closer and closer to being a playoff contender year after year, which is nice to see. see. They have in the Xfinity Series, Ryan Reed's been there for a while. Ty Majeski is a relatively new name. They got a few other drivers that have potential in their lower series. And it sounds like they really want Matt Kenseth to kind of be have a part in mentoring them, bringing them through the system, while also being able to, communicate with the engineers, with the crew chiefs, with the technical side of the cars, and figure out how they can make these cars more competitive. Because it's no secret. Sure, maybe the driving talent on that team right now isn't as good as it was in 2008 or 2009, but I think it's safe to say a lot of that is the cars are not as good, and whether that's drivers aren't giving as good a feedback as guys like Biffle, Edwards, Kenseth did in the day, and maybe Bane and Stenhouse just aren't as good at giving feedback. Maybe that plays a little part of it, because that seems like that's a large reason as why they brought in Kenseth, especially at this point. But again, they did not offer any great details as to how long will Matt Kenseth be driving this car. Is this just a this year deal? Will he potentially be in the car or a car next year or the year after? When will he really fully step into that coach role? When is that going to be something that he's already in kind of now, or is that something that he will only become once he stops actually driving? They really didn't have any specifics, although it was very interesting, especially to a Matt Kenseth fan like me, when asked if this was going to be like a long-term deal, or if this was only for this part of the season, or if there's a possibility of a long-term deal. Matt Kenseth acted like I can't fully quote him because there was a lot of ums and it was not super substantive, but he hesitated, and he definitely implied that he hopes he can get a couple more years of racing before he has to step off the track completely. And in fact, the president of Roush Fenway Racing, Steve Newmark, when asked the same question, he responded basically saying he wants to keep Matt Kenseth on the racetrack as long as he thinks Matt Kenseth still can compete. And the noises he was making is that could be 2 or 3 years still. And since they're still in discussions, they just brought on a new sponsor that seems like they're going to sponsor a large number of the season. Remember, Ricky Stenhouse just signed big extensions with Sunny D, Fastenal, and Fifth Third Banks. That 17 car is fully funded. They're trying to get this 6 car fully funded. It sounds like there's a real possibility that 2019, maybe 2020, Matt Kenseth could be full-time with Roush. It's early to make that as a definitive prediction, but it actually sounds like that's something that Roush Fenway Racing is trying to make happen. It's not necessarily that it will happen. Something could fall through. They couldn't maybe get full funding for the car. They might want to end up wanting to develop Majeski or Reed or Bane again. But it sounds like, at least at this point, assuming things go well this season, they're hoping Matt Kenseth can be back in that car full-time for next year. At least that's the way I interpreted it. Who knows if that's really what they meant, or if they're just throwing that out there as a possibility to not anger Kenseth fans like me. But at least that's kind of what it sounded like. But again, they did not give any specific details, so we're going to have to speculate. But that's fun. Speculating is great. It gives me an opportunity to make a lot of crazy statements. I think it's fair now to go and take a step back and look at Trevor Bayne, look at why this is potentially happening. Because, again, Roush Fenway Racing did not give any strong details as to why they're making this change now, other than they want Matt Kenseth to come in as like a mentor and help their program as a whole. But can we look at it? Is there any other reason? Because there has to be. Obviously, if you look at the 2 drivers Roush Fenway Racing has, Trevor Bayne, he has 1 career win in the Cup Series, and that was way back in 2011, the Daytona 500. One of the greatest moments, honestly, in NASCAR history was Trevor Bayne coming out of nowhere to win the biggest race of the year. But ever since then, he's, just hasn't been that good. When he was with Wood Brothers, even afterwards, he just wasn't really that good. Ever since he's been with Roush Racing, it hasn't been a very good team, and he's been the worst car on that team consistently. So it hasn't looked great for Trevor Bayne. So you have to believe that his performance is a large reason for this change coming when it is. I look at his stats for this season. We're 9 races in. He has 2 DNFs this year, an average finish of 24th. And I was looking at kind of specific race by race. He's only finished on the lead lap in 1 race this season. And that's not really going to get it done, especially when you drive for Jack Roush, who, sure, his cars aren't where they were once before, but he's used to having cars run up front. So if you can't even stay on the lead lap, it's going to be it's not going to be smooth sailing. A lot of people have speculated that this announcement could be both a combination of his not so great performance as well as the fact that he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis several years ago, and it hasn't hindered his driving ability ever, but that is a serious disease that there's a possibility maybe something like that was coming into play and affecting this decision. I think based on what we heard from Jack Roush and from the Roush spokespersons and whatnot on Wednesday, they didn't act like that, never was brought up as a possibility or as a reason, and they really kept it mostly performance based in their discussions. They talked about when they gave Trevor Bayne the news, he was disappointed and wanted to keep racing. He wanted to be in the car full time, so he wasn't obviously super on board with the decision, at least not at first. So that sounds like it's more of a performance-based thing. I don't know that anything else, any other factors necessarily played a role in it. I think it's just that 6th car is running 24th and isn't finishing on the lead lap and is wrecking a lot. And if the guy like Matt Kenseth is out there able to come back and perform, I think that's it just makes sense to possibly make that change. So that's kind of why this is probably happening. It's performance-based. 6th car hasn't been good. 17 hasn't been that good. They're hoping Matt Kenseth can come in and make both cars better. To summarize, they did not say if this is a long-term deal. They didn't even specify how many races he's going to be in this year. We know he'll be in the race at Kansas in the beginning of May, and that he'll be in the All-Star race the week after. So we know 2 races for sure Matt Kenseth will be in, so I better check tickets really quick. Now, but in all seriousness, I'm really excited for Matt Kenseth coming back. I feel bad for Trevor Bayne, but you just can't argue with the lack of performance from him over the years. I think this is I think Jack Roush said in his press conference, he used the phrase, you know, he plagiarized the phrase, he wants to make Roush Fenway Racing great again. And I think it's obviously what he's playing on there, but I think he's making a great point. Roush Fenway Racing from 2000-ish to 2013, maybe 14, mostly 13, was one of the top 2 or 3 organizations in NASCAR every single year. Won a couple championships, won dozens of races, had some of the greatest drivers come through like Kenseth Edwards, Biffle, Kurt Busch, Mark Martin, Jeff Burton, had some great drivers on their team. And the last few years, they've just fallen off a cliff. But even Matt Kenseth pointed out in his press conference, and I think it's obvious to most of us, the last 2 years they've turned at least a little bit of a corner. I think they've maybe hit their lowest of the low, maybe around 2015, 2016, and I think they're on their way back up. Ricky Stenhouse won 2 races last year, so they had a great restrictor plate program. We saw how good they've run at some short tracks this year, Stenhouse again primarily. But the one consistency is that Trevor Bayne has not been as good as the other drivers on that team. So I think this announcement makes sense. It's shocking. I had no idea, no reason to believe this announcement was coming anytime soon. But it's interesting. It'll be very, very surprising. It's surprising me that Jack Roush is willing to pay Matt Kenseth a lot of money, because Matt Kenseth made it clear last season. The large reason he's not in a car this year is because no teams were able to offer him enough money. Jack Roush must have done something to pull this off, and I think it sounds like Jack Roush is making this investment in Matt Kenseth. He's willing to give Matt Kenseth a ton of money, a ton of opportunity, in hopes that it will save his race team. Because the trajectory Roush Fenway is going, they weren't probably going to be around in 3 to 5 years. If Matt Kenseth can come in here, bolster that program, start making them a top 10 program again, maybe a couple wins here and there over the next year or so, then Roush Fenway Racing, they could be on the upswing once again. And I think Jack Roush is kind of putting fully investing in that opportunity and that hope, in those hopes, and we'll see if it works out for him. So lastly, I wanted to go ahead and transition, since I'm not sure if I'm gonna have another episode up this week. I'm going to do my Talladega predictions and picks. It's not gonna be quite as elaborate as it's been in weeks past, but I'm just gonna give you a few names of who we need to watch out for, because it's Talladega. You can't really make a prediction and have any logical reason to back it up. You kind of just have to go with your gut at Talladega, because anything can happen, anyone could win, and a lot of things probably will happen. So let's get to it. If we look back to the Daytona 500, I know a couple Chevys ended up winning the race, and Chevy definitely looked better at Daytona than they've looked anywhere else this season. So the Chevy drivers, Chase Elliott's been decent at plate tracks. He's won at Daytona in the dual races and stuff before, so he's got some success there. Jimmy Johnson's been a great plate racer. Maybe this is a week for him to we've never really thought about Jimmy Johnson relying on a plate track to get a win, but maybe this is the day. If you want my pick for the race, though, my number 1 pick, I gotta go with Brad Keselowski. I know he's not super known for winning the spring Talladega race. He often wins the fall one in the clutch when he needs to, most of all, but he's got a lot of wins at Talladega in his career. He's won here quite a few times, and enough to where I'm beginning to think it's not a fluke anymore, and he's just really good at Talladega and knows something that everyone else doesn't. So Brad Keselowski's an easy pick for me. Ford in general will be strong. I think Toyota actually might be the weakest of the 3 main manufacturers this weekend, and that's not saying that they're going to be much weaker. Kyle Busch will probably lead some laps at some point because he's been on the hugest roll I've ever seen, but I can't really put Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Jones, Truex, Suarez, any of them really in my top 2 or 3 or 4 real picks for this race. Kyle Busch could come out here and win. I mean, he's 7 straight top 3 finishes, 3 straight wins. He wants 4 wins in a row. It hasn't been done in a long time. He wants 4 wins in a row. But it's Talladega. It's a lot of that's out of your control. So Toyota, I'm not feeling it as well. Ford, I'm definitely feeling it with Penske. Stewart-Haas, Eric Almirola almost won the Daytona 500, so Stewart-Haas will be good as well. Fords will be good. Chevys will be good. Toyota's we'll be okay, but I don't expect any Toyotas to dominate the race. I'm excited for Talladega. It's our second plate race of the year. I gotta check what the weather looks like though these days. Talladega weather, Sunday, hey, partly cloudy, 75 degrees is the high. Should be a pretty good day for racing. Oh man, we could use one of those. Anyway, yeah, that's all I have for today's episode. Crazy news with Matt Kenseth coming out of retirement to go back home, as they kept saying. It was interesting. They kept referring to it as home. I didn't really think that Matt Kenseth still had such a connection with Roush. You know, he left Roush Fenway Racing after the 2012 season, came to Gibbs, and had arguably the 5 most consistently dominant years of his career. Won 15 races in 3 years. He won 24 races in like 13 years with Roush. So I think you do the math, his win ratio was a little better at Gibbs. But clearly he's maintained a strong relationship with Jack Roush, with Mark Martin, with a lot of people in that organization. So I'm still stunned. I'm still speechless. It's been 48 hours now almost since we've gotten the news, and I'm still like trembling slightly because I know I'm a huge Matt Kenseth fan. Most of you guys who watch consistently know I'm a huge Matt Kenseth fan, and I've watched almost every race since 2004, 2005, rooting for this one guy, and it's been weird seeing 9 races now without him. And, I like Eric Jones, still will like Eric Jones, don't get me wrong. I like a lot, there's a lot of drivers I like, I'll still continue to root for. I want the young drivers to do well, don't get me wrong. I hope Matt Kenseth wins a race or something, but I want the young drivers to do well because I think it's best for our sport. But I hope the news gets out that Matt Kenseth is coming back. Maybe that'll bring back some old viewers who'd kind of lost interest in NASCAR this year. Maybe that'll help out a little bit. It's no Dale Jr. coming out of retirement, don't get me wrong. But I hope at least this Matt Kenseth news helps kind of bridge the gap in what's been otherwise kind of a slow season for NASCAR. You know, NASCAR this season has been, it doesn't even feel real. It's been so surreal. I mean, we've had a couple races hindered by like snow and like 30, 40 degree weather already this year. We've had, all these hype about young drivers, all these new names that we really don't know that much about. These big names that have been established, Gordon, Stewart, Edwards, Kenseth, Dale Jr., all these people that we've come to know and appreciate all these years, they're not racing. None of them are racing anymore. So we've got all these new names to latch on to, and it's just been weird. It's just been a weird year. And now Matt Kenseth out of nowhere is coming back. I mean, what's next? One of these days, someone's going to find Carl Edwards as like a cruise ship director. It's just been that kind of year. It's been wild, and I've enjoying doing these episodes, talking about it every week, multiple times with you, podcasts that I do on Wednesdays with those other couple, with Danny and Jared. It's been really wild. It's been a really wild season, and this is just, I don't want to say this is the icing on the cake. I think this is just another layer. I think we have a few, maybe perhaps have a few more layers coming by the end of this year, and then maybe the icing will be on the cake will be a 3-wide finish for the championship at Homestead. That'd be some delicious frosting. But anyway, this episode's gone on much longer than I meant for it to. Thanks for watching, everybody. You can check out Monday's episode, check out episodes last week. I talked about the Mustang coming to NASCAR. That's right, the Mustang is going to be back in 2019 too. I'd love to see Matt Kenseth behind the wheel of a Mustang. Hope they get a deal done. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Follow me on Twitter. Links to all that are in the description. I'm planning on relaunching. I've been kind of talking about this. I'm relaunching my Patreon page that I had like a couple of years ago. Didn't really promote it too much, didn't really have a whole lot of traction. I kind of shut it down for a while because I wanted to rework it and focus on other things. But now I'm bringing it back. You can be a sponsor of the show. You can, if you're willing to pledge or donate on there, I really appreciate it. You can sponsor the show, have your name mentioned, have shout outs, things like that. So I really appreciate you guys just checking it out. Links to that in the description. And anyway, yeah, this has been a very long episode. I'm tired. It's early in the morning. I just got done watching the press conference. I should go. I'm not used to being up at 9, 10 in the morning these days. I'm pathetic. But thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you again real soon.